the Big Chill podcast. We're on episode 1, the Liverpool Situation. I'm Frank, and I'm here with Eddie and Sam as usual. And we have a lot of sports to talk about. Sports that are finishing, sports that are starting. We can expose Eddie a little bit on his hate for Jamie Vardy. So let's start with the Premier League. I'll leave this one basically to you two. I don't want to be the American who thinks he knows what he's talking about when it comes to the Premier League, because I really don't. But it just finished on Sunday, which as an American, I think is the coolest thing that the Premier League does when they make everyone play at the same time. And I don't know how it works in England, if you can actually watch all the matches or if there's like kind of like a red zone, kind of how they have the NFL for that. But it's a really cool idea to kind of have everyone go at the same time, and like minute by minute, there can be different outcomes, which is kind of what happened for the relegation. So I'll let you guys get to it. What do you think are the big takeaways? Obviously, Liverpool winning. I'm sure Eddie's got some opinions on that. So Liverpool winning, who's getting relegated? If there's anyone in the Champions League that you think is worth talking about coming up from promotion. So I'll kick it off to you guys, and let's get it started.
All right. I think the final day is one of the more exciting moments in football, the fact that everything's aligned. And even though the title race, I'm probably been a bit spoiled in recent years where there have been title races that have gone down to the final day. And maybe a little bit of an anticlimax to have had Liverpool already win the league several sort of match days before it was all over. But obviously to have, I guess, 3 teams sort of had the chance of either going down or staying up, and that went down to the very final few minutes. And then obviously United, Chelsea, and Leicester sort of fighting for those top 4 spots. And Spurs secured Europa League football, and Mourinho was super happy about that achievement, which was sort of surprising after he'd spent a year sort of making fun of the competition. But yeah, it was a good final day, and probably in the end, I think the finishing positions of the teams is maybe a fair reflection of their overall sort of ability and strength. I don't know what you think, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, Liverpool have dominated it, haven't they? There was no one really. I think there was a moment in maybe like October or November when Liverpool beat City 3-1, and they went from 6 clear to 9. And I think the way Liverpool were just winning games, it felt. You always have that Christmas bit with the Premier League where you think, okay, if a team gets out of it just as good a form as they went into it, you know, they're going to look really good. And just the thing with Liverpool is they just never stopped. And then they had that slight blip with the European competitions and, you know, going out the domestic cups. But ultimately, they just looked too good. They were just winning games. You can say what you want about VAR being on their side, but they just looked too good. Mourinho is a weird one with Spurs because he picked them up when they were 14th. So to come out of it in 6th is pretty impressive. But yeah, I mean, for a guy that's literally won almost everything you can possibly do in European competitions, to be like, I'm absolutely delighted at coming 6th. It does seem a little bit of fall from grace for that kind of guy. I mean,
yeah, no, you're right, though. In the context of when he took charge and what they look like, and the fact that also for most of his time in charge, you've not had Harry Kane available, which for Spurs is so important. So the fact that he managed to get them to still pick up, it's just that they're so awful to watch. I mean, that's the real thing.
It's really painful.
If they were playing better football and had exactly the same results, or even maybe slightly worse, I guess, people probably would have given him a lot more credit. But the fact that it's just terrible to watch most of the time, it just makes people have a sort of instant negative reaction to anything that they achieve.
Am I naive? Like, I mean, I don't get it. I don't understand how they're not better. Like, I look at their lineup and their roster, and I feel like they should be better than they are. And then you watch them play, and it's terrible watching them play. Like you should almost be excited with some of the players they have to watch them play, and then they go out, and it's like, this is terrible. This is pathetic. It's boring. Like, they should be exciting to watch, and they're boring to watch. Like, I hate.
I've put a part of that down to Mourinho, though. That's partly down to Mourinho. I mean, his managerial career has been based on essentially annoying the other teams, frustrating them, slowing it down, being really strong defensively and counter-attacking. Like, that's essentially how he does it. It's not that exciting. It's not like take Arsenal, like a similar team where you think exciting players, but sometimes can just collapse. I think the thing with Arsenal is they've got a lot more of a cavalier attitude to counter-attacking, which really bites them more often than not. But the thing with Spurs is if the counter-attacking isn't working, it's probably going to be a 0-0. And so it suddenly comes across bland to watch.
Also, for the way Mourinho tries to set up a team, I don't think the actual players Spurs have are that suited to it, because they desperately lack someone in central midfield to sort of pull the strings and dictate the play. They probably expected that Ndombele could kind of be that, and then he really hasn't been. And then actually defensively, they're really not very good. The fact that you have Eric Dyer starting for them in a position that certainly isn't his best, but also just the fact is never a good sign when a team starts putting like a utility player into a really key position. And the fact that Eric Dyer is getting that role in big matches says, I mean, if they don't go out and bring in some better central defenders, I'd be stunned. But then I don't know. They're not exactly the team that you would expect to spend a lot of money in the current climate. And so then that's going to make it really hard for them to bring in something better.
And besides, new stadium. I mean, what do you do after a new stadium? You either go all in with it. You either spend a lot of money, new stadium, you're going to bring in the best players to bring the biggest buzz, or you do what Arsenal did, where it's just like, oh, it's been financed through debt, so now we're going to have to consolidate budgets, and for the next decade, the team's looking pretty terrible. I guess that's Levy. Levy's not exactly a man you want with all the cash, because he's not going to spend it, quite frankly, but that's what they need at the moment, I think.
It's tough, too, because the other thing is you'd have to sort of you'd have to look at the league and say, what are our chances of finishing fourth? Even if our signings are great. Because you have to assume that Liverpool and City will be in the top four. Then they're competing with United, Chelsea, Arsenal, Leicester for the sort of remaining two spots. It's hard to see, when you look at both United and Chelsea, you kind of want to think that next year they will be better. So to close the gap to the third and fourth for Spurs, it's a huge gap to close.
Even then, you would probably say that Wolves are in a better position next year to be better than Spurs. If it stayed at the moment right now, and we just assume that Levy didn't spend a penny, you would probably assume Wolves to be better.
If Wolves can put more of their players on the Adama Traore steroid plan, they all get on that cycle. Then who knows?
He is an absolute unit.
Literally bully teams around.
Yeah. Just have a keeper who will take up the entire net.
Just a block. Just a solid block.
No, his physical transformation. I'm totally unrelated topic, but I know that they get drugs tested in football, and perhaps he's just really, really, really focused on his
steroid.
On his muscle training. But it seems unbelievable to me to have that kind of physical transformation at the age at which he had it too. It's not like, it's one thing to see someone undergo that kind of shift from sort of 17 to 20 or something like that, but to do that, especially to do it when you were already a professional footballer, so there should really be no reason to have that dramatic of a transformation.
Who else did it happen to? The guy at West Ham, was it Marc Antonio? Who basically, they've turned him from a striker who was just pretty good, quite decent and pacey, to now he literally pushes players over. It's kind of a mega tank kind of thing. So yeah, but
well, it's like I was looking at something on Instagram before, and it had Lukaku over the years because he had a pretty good season goal wise, and just looking through him, he did the opposite transformation. His gut every year just gets like bigger and bigger. I didn't know that he was actually that fit looking when he was younger. I thought he was always just kind of like an out of shape looking player. But I looked at him and it's like, I didn't even know that was, like, you could barely tell it was him. Like his face looks different. He's kind of trim, kind of slim. And then they show him from this year, and like the form-fitting jerseys for him, they should never be allowed because it's just like his gut looks like he's pregnant. It's great. So he's done the opposite transformation.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely no steroid use involved there. I mean, maybe he's doing it wrong. Maybe he's like eating huge meals, not exercising, but then drinking a bunch of protein shakes. Like, so he thinks that he's like, as long as I get the protein shakes in, everything will work out.
Yeah, maybe just no one told him that there's more to do with weight gain formula.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He's just like, look at my gains, guys. 50 pounds this year. But also the thing, like, go back to a point you touched on, Sam, like Liverpool have looked unstoppable this year, and they are undoubtedly, I'm not going to try and make a statement where I don't think they are, they're totally deserving champions. And their consistency and ability to win when they aren't playing particularly well and to kind of grind out results is really admirable, and one of those things that you normally associate with teams that win the league title. But I still fundamentally believe that City when both teams play each other on their best day, I think City are the better team. And now City are horribly inconsistent and desperately need to improve themselves defensively going into next season. But, for example, for me, I think that I'd make City favourites to win the league next season, and I would pick City to win next year.
See, I wouldn't actually
Sam, real quick. Is this Eddie's way of saying that all the losses he has in bets from City winning the league are justified because in his mind, City was still the better bet? Is that what he's trying to tell us here?
Oh, I'm not even
that's how he's using that.
Look, it's been a few days over. Eddie's all over. Season's in the past. He's moving
Yeah, no, exactly. Just keep looking forward. Focus on the next bet, not the
But the
last.
thing is, like, just to say, like, I don't disagree with you. I mean, City scored over 100 goals this year. Yeah, okay, they lose annoying games. So as a gambler, you must be infuriated because they'll win easily either side of that loss 5-0 every game. And it almost doesn't matter who the team is. So they score over 100 goals. They conceded, I think, about the same as Liverpool, maybe mid-30s, early 30s, like 35 or something like that they conceded. So the thing with Liverpool, for me, is that the forward three are really good, don't get me wrong. But when Van Dijk is not in that team, I feel more worried about Liverpool winning than I would with Man City without Sterling, for example, or something like that. I just think that Liverpool really have a linchpin with Van Dijk, whereas Man City, I think, have more cover for more positions. Like defensive frailties get flagged every time, like Arsenal in the FA Cup semi-final beat them on exactly that reason, defensive frailties. But Man City know that, and I just struggle to see. You can't replace Van Dijk because he's not going to be replaced. But if he gets injured, I think Liverpool have a problem next season. Even if it's for a month, there's still 4 games.
Yeah, or if he were just to be suspended for some crucial matches or whatever, just if you didn't have him in the matches where they really get top opposition. But I think in general, they're much more reliant on, say, their 3 to 4 key players than City are. I mean, City, when they're missing Sterling or missing De Bruyne, look a different side, but still fundamentally they've got, the fact that they can bring someone like Mahrez in who can kind of fill that void for certain aspects pretty well. Also, the other concern for Liverpool, and it's not going to be an immediate one for next season, but they have a much older squad. And all of their key players are going to need to be replaced in the next 3-4 seasons.
It did feel like their moment, didn't it? Because last season, if it wasn't for that incredible, so going back right to the start, what you were saying about, we've been really lucky. Last season was just an incredible run. The idea that, 13 matches won straight each? And it was insane. It was such good football because it was so captivating. Every single team for the last 20, 30 years of the Premier League slips up when they go on some sort of pressure run-in or need to win games. And they just didn't. And it was incredible to watch. But I agree with you. I think Man City look better. I just think they look better equipped at the moment.
I mean, what you touched on too, and for Liverpool, they then carried that on for 2/3 of this season. So they went through a sort of 18-month period where they didn't lose, and that's incredible.
I'm biased against Liverpool. I'm not a fan of Liverpool, but you can't deny what they've done. But I'm so happy that all the records they could have won, they didn't win as many by a mile. So they didn't break the 100 point. They got 99. So they didn't do that. They were going unbeaten at one point, and then they get absolutely humped by Watford, I think it was, which was it was the most satisfying game of this season for me to watch. And then on top of it, they didn't get the perfect record at home. because of that draw with Burnley like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
And
I think
I'm just satisfied by that. I'm sorry.
Well,
Liverpool.
I think the thing is that they were on course to be statistically the greatest English team of all time. And over the period of, and even if you factored in, there was a moment when you could have thought they're going to win the Champions League again and go unbeaten in the league, possibly break the points record, do all of the things. I mean, you know, they could have got into the, not that they aren't one of the very best teams of recent years, but they were on course to be able to really make the argument for the fact that they were the greatest English team of all time and potentially even the greatest sort of European team of all time. And that's gone. You can't make that argument now.
Yeah, they do need to be consistently winning. And I'm not saying they're not. They obviously beat Spurs in the Champions League, for example, but they need like a 4 or 5 year purple patch where they are close with everything continuously.
Oh yeah, people are already talking about it sort of as if it's a little bit of a dynasty, and I mean finishing second and then finishing first is not a dynasty. You know, a couple of years ago they finished
Champions
fourth.
League wins in the middle of it, though.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, well, no, that's my point as well.
It's a good run. It's a good run. It's not a dynasty.
No.
It's a very solid run.
Yeah. Like if they had done those records, you know, the 100-point barrier, the 19 for 19 home, you could start talking about that because so many records got broken by a single club in a single year. Like just look at Arsenal, like that Invincibles year is a dynasty because they went unbeaten. But they
Arsenal's the Invincibles are a dynasty in the context that in that period,
exactly,
you know, they won several league titles. So it wasn't as if, and you know, the FA Cup several times, and it wasn't as if, wow, you had one incredible season. You know, a dynasty implies that you are very, very good over a number of years, and you consistently win. You know, you are champions over a number of years, not even just getting close.
Yeah, that's my point, I guess, as well. That Liverpool need to do that for this to be considered a dynastic year, I guess, if you put it a better way. But you know, all they're going to do is win the league. Now, obviously, that's really good. Liverpool fans are delighted, but that's it.
So speaking of dynasties, I think Jake would be pissed if we didn't mention United.
You said pissed. You said pissed. We're explicit now. I'm gonna have to put the E on the title.
Well, maybe when we talk about United, we can get Jake on the other end cursing at us listening to this podcast. Is this the start of a rebuild for United? Is this encouraging?
I don't think Man U fans quite understand how they finished this season third. I think
they don't understand?
if you ask, I think if you ask most of them, they
were saying they're not capable of adding up points.
Yeah, well, you know,
they literally can't calculate what happened.
Are you?
No, but I'm saying they're surprised. You must be sat there when, for the past 9 months, all they've basically done is ridicule Solskjaer and that team. And then all of a sudden they signed Bruno Fernandes and things tick up. And to be third, I would probably say they're third because everyone else was just terrible at maintaining some sort of like consistency. But
Leicester fell off a bit of a cliff.
Third and ninth.
I mean, Leicester were hit pretty badly by a number of injuries, but also just in general fell off a cliff after the restart. And United were pretty. I mean, even United slipped up in the final few matches. It's not as if they were perfect. And, you know, but to me, I think I wouldn't say they're never going to get back to where they were. I mean, that's the thing. Like, no club will probably ever dominate the English sort of leagues in the way that United did over a 20-year period under Ferguson. Like, that's never going to happen again. So they're not going to rebuild to that degree. But I do think
if I'm wrong, didn't after Ferguson left, didn't they have a year where they were like third or fourth in the league again, and it looked like they were, and then they kind of just started dropping again. So I mean, is this just another like 1 year kind of lucky thing, or I mean, what do you think is like good for them for next year?
Well, the question is, when will United be serious title challengers again? That's the question, and not even saying when will they win the title again. At what point will you seriously mention United? And they're not there. I'm not going to say that United are title. Now, it's possible that they make a leap forward or they make a couple of good signings, and they've got so many very talented young players. Between next season, maybe a few of them kind of make that leap and suddenly turn into the players that they have the potential to be, and then we talk about United differently. But I don't think I would say that United in their current form are probably now on course to be a solid top 4 team, which is an improvement over recent seasons, but still significantly behind City and Liverpool. And so
if you're a supporter, I mean, like, are you okay with that? Because I agree. I think they can be in that top 4, but does it really matter at the end of the day if they're still nowhere as competitive as Liverpool and City? I mean,
I watched the match.
Frustrated, or
I watched the match yesterday at a pub, and which was filled with United supporters. And,
so you went to a filled pub. Good job, Eddie.
Yeah. Well, they're all very socially...
Way to expose yourself in the COVID era.
Socially distanced. We were safely separated, but 80% of the people... 80% of the people there were United supporters. And they celebrate... when they were awarded the penalty and then when they went ahead, you would have thought that they were winning the league. And I commented to one of them who was with me, imagine if 10, 15 years ago I had told you that you would win a match on the final day of the season, finish third, and you would treat it as this monumental achievement. And it's inconceivable from where they were before. So like the majority of United supporters, in a sense, reshaping their expectations for the club has happened pretty quickly. I mean, they've managed to lower their expectations justifiably, but in a relatively short period of time have accepted they are not the club that they were. If I were a United supporter now, I think now if they don't finish in the top 4 next season, then that's a failure. I think that's now what you've established.
Speaking of that, can we flip it the other way? So you said about Man City's celebration. What about Villa's celebration? Did you see Roy Keane's remark? Yeah, because it's kind of true about expectations. Like, is Villa staying up that incredible for the players to celebrate like they've just won something? Because Roy Keane was like, imagine if they had won something, they probably would have started like murdering each other.
Roy Keane.
That was on my list. That was on my list because that popped up and I saw the Twitter of it. I mean, they were going insane. Like I thought they were gonna start popping out like champagne bottles.
Wasn't the song they were singing like "This is as good as it gets"? So basically, they are acknowledging that one place above being relegated is the best they're ever going to do.
Well, and thanks to Grealish with his amazing hair.
Yeah,
best hair in the league.
Well, best hair, best calves too. Amazing legs, and always
really.
Yeah, you got to check. You got to check out the Grealish legs.
He doesn't wear his socks high up. Yeah, certain for this reason.
Yeah, he's definitely
better than Shaqiri.
Yeah, and he almost always has a tan that is impossible to achieve in Birmingham.
Yeah, and also Xherdan Shaqiri's like 5'3", so you'd expect the width to be naturally like.
Shaqiri's like all calf muscle. Like that's 80% of his body.
Yeah, I've heard of Swiss cows, but not Swiss calves.
Yeah, but no, I don't know. I'm torn on that one a little bit. I can understand. I mean, from Roy Keane, it's a little bit, you're kind of punching down as Roy Keane there because, wow, you were part of some of the greatest teams of all time, and now you're there taking shots at players who obviously are nowhere near as good as you were, and in size that were nowhere near as good as yours were either.
Yeah.
But if I were a supporter of Aston Villa, would I want the players to survive on the final day and just go, well, we're still shit? I think you would want the players to react as if this is huge for the club. Yeah. It's obviously huge for the club in terms of, they stay in the Premier League, or the money that it means, the kind of financial security of the club, and for the players too, because they would have all either left the club or had to take pay cuts. So for them, it's not a sort of insignificant moment where you just go, well, we'll be in this league again.
Yeah.
And I wonder if just the whole situation too kind of adds to it. I mean, like with this whole COVID thing going on, you're locked up for so long, you're probably just so like bent up wanting something to happen, and then at least this maybe was just something they could shoot for. They're sitting in isolation for 2 months, and you come out of it thinking like, all right, let's try and, put up some points here and not get relegated and have something to feel good about, after just being in a loan for 3-4 months. And they did. They came out and they did what they had to do to not get relegated. And, maybe it's just like that exasperation of like, it feels good to achieve something in the past 6 months.
Plus, they looked like they were down. If you go back a couple months ago, if you go back to the restart, they were odds on to be relegated. You would have thought they were going to go down. So in that context, again, to manage to go on a really good run and keep yourselves up, it would just be weird as a player to just react as if it's still disappointing. And they're not. What were their expectations for the season? They weren't. No one was expecting them to be like a top half team. So as soon as you're not putting yourselves in that group, then survival is the most important thing, right? There's no real. I know there's a slight financial difference between finishing, say, 17th and 12th, but it's not monumental. And no one's going to remember. If anything, if you were a supporter, you could almost argue that for the rest of their lives, Aston Villa supporters will probably remember that final day. Whereas, if you finish 12th or 13th, you'd forget about it probably within 6 months.
I also think staying up in your first season up is critical. Like the amount of teams that do that kind of one season wonder. Norwich, great example at 21 points, like the derbies when they got so few points. But I know Bournemouth just went down, but you look at like their stint, and it was all because all they had to do that first season was survive it. And I think that matters, and that's what Villa have done. And also the good thing about the way Villa have done it, because like Bournemouth, West Ham, Brighton, Palace, they weren't inconsistent. It's not like someone plummeted at the bottom. They all picked up points at the end. It wasn't like, oh, Villa stayed because Bournemouth lost every single game. It kind of, I think it was a pretty good survival, to be honest. I thought they did pretty well. So I feel sorry for Bournemouth. They've had some really bad VAR decisions over the past 5 games.
Yeah, I mean, as a club, it seems like a nice club. It's nice to have the sort of smaller clubs in the Premier League and to show that football isn't just all about huge cities and huge fan bases. At the same time, I don't know how I feel about Eddie Howe.
How so?
Yeah, he looks.
Oh, go on.
Whenever I watch him, he doesn't seem like someone I would get along with, and he seems a little bit too into himself at times. I think he's really this idea that he was the sort of next English tactical genius went to his head a little bit at different moments, and he's sort of believed his own hype at times, and he's going to be an interesting one because I'm assuming they're going to keep him, but if they were to sack him, it would be interesting to see where he ended up next, and he could also be another one of those managers who sort of. You look back in the kind of sort of David Moyes style of sort of situation where you go, well, there was this period where he achieved really good things at clubs and was thought of as the next big thing. And either you, in David Moyes' case, got the chance, but there's a host of other managers who then never get that chance and it never reappears. Yeah. Eddie Howe's ship may have sailed in terms of being, people were talking about him as a future England manager, and then also linking him with big jobs. And both of those might no longer be sort of possibilities for him.
You've really got to worry about Bournemouth now because, the team, okay, Eddie Howe might stay, but like you say, I think the ship sailed with Eddie Howe because he had a chance to move, maybe even if he put his hat in for the United job pre-Solskjaer. I would have said there's a pretty solid amount of likeliness that he was one of the top candidates for the job when Solskjaer got the job. But the thing is, Nathan Aké, all these people that they spent 20, 30 million plus on, they're gone. They've got to be gone in a club that's got 20,000 seater.
The only reason they might not be gone is in the context of the pandemic. It might be one of the best years to go down because you'd have to assume there will be less transfer activity this summer. And so if you did want to try and keep a squad together and have 1 year of trying to immediately bounce back, this might be the year where you're most likely to be able to hold on to players.
Because you're not going to lose revenue either, are you? No one's going to the games. So you can't lose stadium revenue. It's not like Bournemouth having 18,000 is different to Arsenal having 60, right? For the next 3-4 months.
Well, apart from the fact that Yeah, I mean, they'll be used to they will notice less of a difference, but at the same time they're probably operating with, finer margins. So that drop in revenue may be much more important to Bournemouth than it is to bigger clubs. United can eat the cost of playing behind closed doors. For smaller clubs, even though the loss of revenue is far, far smaller, it's probably more noticeable.
Yeah, I mean, to wrap up the season, if it was me wrapping it up, I'm pretty bummed out by it, to be honest. I think a lot of the things that have been interesting in the past have been over quite early. And the COVID thing kind of messed it up. The slowdown, I think teams like Sheffield United were unlucky because they did have momentum pre-lockdown, and they came out of it with none. It's the fan thing as well. It's all been a little bit sad to watch football on TV. Like, for me, I've been pretty bummed out by the end of the season. I don't know what other people think as like a
kind of like watching it with no. I'm to me, almost you could convince me that sports now should just always be played behind closed doors, but in facilities intended for that. I mean, I guess it might be a good way to change the topics, but like when you see what the NBA has planned and where they're going to play their games, to me that might end up providing a better, for the person watching from home, providing the much better experience than you will have in a packed arena or a packed stadium in the case of football.
Yeah. I mean, I think we should probably wrap up. But so the only two things I had left were, one, I have to point out Eddie's hatred of Jamie Vardy and how inaccurate he's been. So I have a chat from Eddie. And well, first off, this year when we did our fantasy football league, Eddie kept trying to trade me forwards because he kept implying that Jamie Vardy isn't a number one forward.
No. I want to say this in context.
That he isn't a premier forward.
Hold on.
He's not a number one. He's the number one.
Yeah, he's the number one.
That fantasy football prediction on my part was definitely a bad one. But me trying to make moves with you was more, Hallelujah. So to speak. It was more about the fact that you only had Jamie Vardy and that I was trying to give you more depth. That was more the issue.
How much depth do I need when I have the Golden Boot winner?
Well,
I mean, that is depth of like two forwards.
Did you win the league?
I chose to not continue playing the league once COVID happened.
So no, you didn't win the league. So as it turns out,
like golf, he's allowed to pull out the cup because of COVID, right?
And then let's go back to 2016. I think it had to be Euros, right?
During the Euros, yeah. It was definitely a reaction to me watching Jamie Vardy play for England in the Euros.
So Eddie says he isn't that good. Sooner or later, the world will realize he sucks. Probably by next season.
Well,
so
I mean, I guess
couldn't have been more wrong on that one.
Well, it's all relative, right? I wasn't implying that he literally can't play football, but I guess you could argue that a lot of the world did realize because his England career has come to an end. I know that he chose to retire, but he retired because he never played. So I think there's some other. I don't think he's awful. I think he's a bit of a flat track bully, and he's definitely a one-trick pony. Just to throw a few expressions in there to describe.
Got any more? Go on, give me two more.
He's a
one-hit wonder. What do you?
Yeah, well, he's a one-hit wonder.
In the bottle, is that it?
Yeah, just a little
bolt in the bottle.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess the most surprising thing about Jamie Vardy in some ways is the fact that he hasn't seemed to have a real drop-off in his pace. I guess he deserves credit for that. Maybe it's all the Red Bulls he drinks and stuff, or whatever it is. His awful pre-game rituals, but
after sacrificing a lamb and having a Red Bull, Jamie Vardy walks onto the pitch.
But no, I genuinely do not think that Jamie Vardy, for example, is a top quality. I wouldn't, if I were in charge of a big team, I wouldn't go out and try to sign Jamie Vardy. I think he's a very good player. I think he's the kind of player who is suited to being the linchpin of a side. So staying at a club like Leicester, where they will literally build a team around making him a success. And I can say this as a Blackburn supporter. We've had many players who thrived playing for Blackburn, but in situations where they were a central and key figure and the team was built to make them succeed. And as soon as they went elsewhere, things fell apart for them. And I would put Jamie Vardy in that category.
You always wonder about players like that, don't you? Like, does Jamie Vardy need to move on to kind of prove that he's better than he is at Leicester? Kind of like the Messi thing at Barca, right? Does he have to go somewhere else? Yeah, do they have to go somewhere else to show that they're an incredible player?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't really want to throw Jamie Vardy and Messi into the same conversation. But
What about Tom Brady?
Yeah, can we have Tom Brady in?
Is it the system or is it the player?
we'll find out.
We will find out. Yeah, so I guess the only other thing I had about the Premier League is I didn't realize how quickly it's starting back up. That's pretty awesome. It's literally it's a month and a half.
6 weeks, I think, 6-7 weeks. Yeah,
crazy. I can't imagine players are happy about that.
They don't have a choice because they're supposed to be having the Euros next summer. So
well, it doesn't stop, does it? August is Champions League, so some clubs are actually not even done yet.
Yeah. All right. So quickly, what's your bet for next year? Who wins?
Oh, Man City.
City.
Any play on Liverpool?
No.
Well,
I mean, we can look.
Well, they're coming second. I mean, like if that's what you mean, I'd probably give Man City. If you're going to tell me like a points kind of over under, I'd probably take a minimum amount. I'd probably say something like 4. 4 or 5 points they'll win the league by.
How about Man U in the top 3?
Yeah, I can see that.
I'd feel comfortable with that. I'd even make a bold prediction. I can see Liverpool finishing outside the top 2.
Wow.
See, that's good.
If I had to make a bold prediction, I could see that happening.
He hates Liverpool. I love it.
It's not hatred, and it's definitely not a hatred of Klopp or any of their players. But
I have a partial hatred for Jordan Henderson. In fairness.
Well, yeah, player of the year, Jordan Henderson.
Yeah, but he needs to go to another club to really be top class.
There's a conspiracy theory that I can get on board with. I think Guardiola's 100% right that there seems to be some sort of Liverpool bias in the individual player awards. Oh,
I agree with that. I remember seeing the stats as well. Like, what was it? Like, Man City win the league and Mane gets it or something like that. But
yeah, it's 3 seasons ago you had City winning the league comfortably, Liverpool finishing 4th, and Salah got it.
That's it.
Last year, obviously City pipped Liverpool, Van Dijk got it. And this year, Liverpool win the league and Henderson gets it. And that's not to say that any of those players weren't deserving of the award. But it does seem that when Liverpool won it this year, it's like, well, we have to pick a Liverpool player because they won the league and we need to pick a player who we think was sort of essential in that. But when City win it, it's sort of, well, but were there any outstanding individual performers within that team, or are they just a really good team? And it seems to flip from one season to another as to how they're determining who deserves the award.
Yeah.
All right. So let's switch from a sport that's finishing to a sport that's starting. And we can kind of, I guess, for the American sports, now that they're all starting up around the same time, we don't have to talk about them all at once. We kind of go through. So maybe today we can do baseball, and then next one do maybe hockey and NBA, because I think they actually start up. I know hockey starts up on Saturday, so we can do a little bit of that, and I can give you my great picks because Eddie's so interested in the NHL. So
yeah, I can just say that my hockey takes are going to be really short.
Well, I'll give you some great things to bet on that clearly won't win, I'm sure. But yeah, so let's start with baseball. So it was supposed to start in March, gets pushed back. So they're starting now. They've played the first few games. The season is shortened to 60 games as opposed to 162, which I think is awesome. As someone who used to watch baseball, I used to watch baseball all the time when I was younger. I mean, I was a really avid Yankee fan. I used to watch almost every game, every night. It would be on our TV. But after a while, it just wears you down. Like it's not fun. It's not enjoyable after a while. It's like it gets so boring sometimes. And I really haven't watched baseball very much in the past 7-8 years. But now if you told me it's only 60 games and each game really matters, I think that's kind of cool. The other thing I think that's neat is the rule change now that a pitcher has to face at least 3 batters, whereas before they bring a pitcher in for 1 batter, take them out, put a new pitcher in, face two batters, take them out. It's like 15, 20, 30 minutes. Like games would be hours and hours. So this will kind of speed up the games a little bit. But I think the fact now that every game kind of means something that you'll see, I think it's just going to make it more competitive. So I think that part's cool. They're using the DH, a designated hitter, in both leagues this year, which is cool. That's going to add some firepower. The whole rule about if it goes to extras after a certain amount of time, they put a player on second base to start the inning so that they could potentially not go into 17, 18 inning games. I think that's kind of neat. So on paper, it seems like baseball could be fun and interesting, but what happens in reality is what we see today, where at least 12 Florida Marlins have already tested positive for COVID. They've canceled their home opener game, I think, which is today, and they've canceled the Phillies-Yankees game because that's who the Marlins were playing, were the Phillies. So, I mean, we can talk about the NBA bubble, which is a much better idea on Thursday, but you're already seeing that. Is this going to be a possibility where you have 30 teams traveling around the country? And I mean, baseball players are pretty notorious for playing their game and then going out and doing whatever they want, going to restaurants, staying up all night, going to clubs and things like that. How is this going to work if 1 week in, you're already getting 12 players tested positive on a team? I mean, maybe they're going for herd immunity the first month, so then their team's good to go for playoffs. I don't know.
Maybe it's a tactical move by the Marlins.
Yeah, for me though, as a Brit looking at baseball, surely it's already open before it's begun. We've just had a look at the Premier League where they do travel around. Like, don't get me wrong, like flying's different, but they do travel around, and Premier League tests everyone, and we got like a couple of tests that were positive. So they showed there's a way of doing it, I guess. But surely the season's already surely the season's already over. I mean, 13 players positive. They're not going to have any sort of team, so they're not going to be competitive. Which I think we've spoken about this before. Like in American sports, it matters more when certain players aren't playing. You basically become a much worse team if they're not playing. So is it? I mean, you've got to postpone it again, right? Or what'd you do?
I don't think they'll stop it. I think when you've restarted the league, you have to do so knowing that there is a very good chance that something like this happens. So for them to have started the league and then stop this, it's basically them saying, well, we crossed our fingers and hoped that no one was going to get it. That just wasn't realistic. So short of someone becoming seriously ill who's involved in the teams and then being able to point, either a player or a member of staff. But I think this just had to be expected. And it's also pretty lucky the Marlins aren't good. So it helps that it's not one of the teams that are kind of
few.
No, I mean realistically it would be a really different story if it was like the Dodgers, like half of the Dodgers are gone. That would be a really different thing. If you thought that the sort of World Series was going to go to a different team as a result of the virus, which may end up happening. I don't know what they'll do. Like if you get to the World Series and then half your team gets COVID, what do they do then? Do you have to forfeit a World Series game? Do they postpone the World Series for as long as it takes for 14 days for them to get back and up and running? That I don't know, but I would hope that they have contingency plans for all of these things in place.
And we talked about that before, purposely infecting players if you have a big bet on, a team to win, and you just go in and start coughing all around the hotel room or something.
The doctor swapping the blood vials, that kind of thing.
I don't want to
the doctor
imply
swapping the blood vials. No, but what I don't get is logistically, real quick for me, I mean, if they're going to 14-day quarantine and you're only playing 60 games, so you say you're playing 3 or 4 a week, then they're going to be missing 6-7 games. Like how? If
they're probably going to
happen once. If it's only happened once already, it's going to happen more times. So how many times are you going to keep canceling and rescheduling and postponing games? Like this season's going to be a disaster. I mean,
I guess they'll just have to play quadruple headers at some moment. But no, I guess I hope that they must have assumed that this was going to happen. And look, European football leagues for the most part were just really lucky that this was never a major issue. That key players basically avoided it. There were moments when they were coming back in that there were players testing positive, and the teams themselves then had to go into quarantine and stuff. But it never happened to a team in the just ahead. Like if you imagine say a week ago if a bunch of United players had tested positive and then they'd have to sit out a crucial match, something like that. But I mean, the NBA is just easier because the idea of operating in a dome, that's going to solve so many of the problems, like to operate in this sort of isolated environment. I think baseball just has to accept that this is going to happen.
Why isn't baseball being played in a specific area? Like,
I thought they thought about it, and you could do it easily. I mean, you could just play in Florida and in Arizona. I mean, I live in Arizona. I know there are tons of the spring training diamonds. I mean, remember, there's no fans, so you don't need a stadium with a huge seating capacity. So you could play in these spring training facilities that are really, really nice. They're great facilities. They can only hold, a quarter of a normal capacity of a MLB stadium. But you could have played in 2 or 3 designated spots, kind of like the NHL is doing. The NHL decided they're going to play in Edmonton and Toronto, and they're going to put, the teams up in the same hotels, basically, have them play and practice on certain time schedules, try and restrict them from going out as much as possible. Or if they do, they have like designated restaurants that they can go to that, have specific protocols, I guess, for them. But it sounds like baseball to me is just a free for all where they're like, it'll be fine. Like, let's just go for it. And I don't think it's going to work. I think this is going to be a nightmare of a season.
Well, the difference
Especially
between
like even little things like, what about like pitching rotations, right? I mean, you have a guy test positive, he throws off your pitching rotation, then like those are little things in baseball that matter a lot.
Yeah.
Do you think it changes the NFL? Do you think the NFL now thinks that these bubbles almost have to be done?
I think the NFL is a little different because you only play 1 game a week and you can stay in your home spot. So you can stay in your location, contain yourself in like a mini bubble, and then just travel, play your game, and come back. I think that's a lot more feasible than constantly traveling, playing 2 games, traveling somewhere else, playing 2 games. And the other thing I already saw about the NFL is they said, I think it just popped up today or yesterday, that if a player tests positive for COVID and he got it in like a work environment, kind of like if they find out it's from him going out or something, then they could get dock pay or like disciplinary action from that, which baseball isn't doing. And that's, who knows?
Yeah. I mean, the NBA was in a situation where obviously it was towards the end of the season, so you're just talking about a few regular season games and then the playoffs. So it's a lot easier to ask players. I know that if you end up sort of making a long playoff run, you will have been there for several months, but it's still not like having to sit in a, you would have had to ask baseball players, I guess their families all get to move. Who's paying for that? Like if a player, if you live normally in Toronto and now you're going to have to play games only in Arizona or Florida, are you paying rent? You can move your whole family to Florida, and who handles that? I mean, there would be just so many issues there to try and figure out. But I don't think it impacts the NFL. I think NFL players already accept the fact that they have huge CTE risks. I think trying to convince them that they can't play football because of COVID, it's probably, I think they're going to, for the most part, think that, I mean, I know that the Chiefs player became the first one this week to opt to take the NFL's offer of opting out of the season. So he took whatever, I think it was $150,000 or whatever. As his...
Was that Mahomes?
Yeah, exactly.
An absolute
Patrick Mahomes signs a massive contract and then decides to opt out.
Decides, no, yeah, he read one of those articles about how you don't get happier after like $100,000, and just decided, no, I'll stop playing football and I'll take the 150 and just live my best life.
I just don't get I don't get baseball. I don't get why it hasn't done it. If they're condensing the season, they're openly changing the way schedules happen to accommodate, COVID, and doing it quicker and more kind of intensely, I guess.
Well, the speed of the games is in part in relation to obviously trying to deal with the compacted season, but it's also just because baseball games have been getting longer and longer and longer, and it's awful. Like, to sit and watch a Yankees-Red Sox game that goes on for at least 4 hours in recent years, it's just painful. And the fact that you'll get a pitcher coming in to face one batter, so you'll have to wait while the manager comes out, makes the pitching change, the guy runs in, takes his warm up pitches, and then potentially throws one pitch, and then you go, now let's do that whole thing again. I know you guys have enjoyed that one pitch that you got to see in the last 10 minutes, but maybe you'll get to see another one 5 minutes from now if you're lucky.
That sounds friggin' dull.
Yeah.
Like, is that just because baseball is so data-driven now it matters, or what?
Yeah.
Well, my theory.
Watching that was almost as boring as listening Eddie say that.
My theory on baseball managers and the fact that I think that almost anyone could be a Major League Baseball manager, and the fact that they won't be able to just make those pointless pitching changes is going to remove like one of the few things they could really do anyway. So now, I mean, they'll just be disappointed that they just have to sit and watch the games like the rest of us for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's literally you set your lineup, which is a pretty easy thing to set up. Like if you know even a little bit about baseball, like this guy's fast and gets on base, let's put him in early. This guy, can drive the ball, bring in runs, so let's put him in the middle of the lineup. The shitty batter, he goes at the end. Like that's pretty easy to do. And then now for the pitching part, it's like you have your starting pitchers, and then when you have to bring in a relief pitcher, it's who's the most rested, healthiest, best relief pitcher I can bring in. And then your closer is going to be your closer. You know who that is. I mean, there's not much to the manager side now when you're not doing like, oh, this guy is great against lefties who like to go opposite field. I'm going to bring him in for one at bat. When you take that away, you're taking away a lot of that strategy. So I definitely think we can put Sam on a plane, send him over, and he can start his manager trial in the MLB.
Yeah, you could start with you could become the manager of the Marlins. You'll get a nice 14-day period to read as much as you can about baseball. And then from there, 14 days from now, you'll probably be ready to go. And they're going to be terrible anyway, so you could maybe make them slightly more terrible or slightly less terrible. Who knows?
Yeah, or I could try new things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all you have to do is you have to play either the analytics card really heavy or the anti-analytics card really heavy. You just have to be really adamant about one or the other.
Oh,
I'm into big data, or I don't think.
No, I like as I'm getting interviewed as like I get on the plane over to Miami, I'd be like, I'm all about gut feelings with this sport.
Yeah.
I got a good feeling. I got a good feeling about this guy. He's never thrown the right hand in his life. Doesn't matter. He's gonna do it.
You got to be the Charles Barkley of baseball and just start saying that analytics, even if it's right, analytics ruin baseball, and then just go from there and just say you never look at any stat, not a single one.
Usually when you're controversial, people ignore the background to the controversy. They just like the controversy in itself. So as long as I say controversial things, like even though my team have COVID, I think they can play. Everyone would be like, whoa, I wouldn't go
that far. Hold on a second. We're not suggesting you become some like anti-vaxxer.
Would I fit in?
I meant the analytics of baseball, not the analytics for the COVID pandemic. I don't want you going into...
I could be like super analytical for the COVID.
I mean, you'll become Donald Trump's favorite baseball manager. There might be something to that. Like, you'll be the first ever, like, you'll be like Marlins manager and vice president. It will be quite the situation.
This all happened within like 7 days of landing. It's been a really good time actually. I've kind of enjoyed the idea, except the COVID part. That's less.
Well, you don't believe
exciting.
That's a thing anyway, right? So.
I know this is episode 1, but I don't need to sit here and say I'm an anti-vax.
No, it's too late. It's too late.
Okay, too late.
We don't want the audience to hate him after the first episode.
Wow, we're gonna have to do a lot more than not talk about how he doesn't believe in COVID for them to not hate him.
He doesn't believe in COVID, but he gets adamant when people don't wear masks to the point where he'll defriend them and shame them on public Zooms.
I'll be furious. No.
So I mean, that's, I don't have any opinions on the actual who I think is going to win or things like that for baseball because I don't follow it enough. I mean, obviously, like Sam said, you have your 3 or 4 top teams that are going to be super competitive.
The Dodgers. The Dodgers are stacked.
Yeah, I mean, the only interesting thing is now they've expanded the playoffs. which means you could have a team sneak in and just get on a super hot run and have another team get COVID. And, next thing you know, they're moving their way in. I think that could definitely happen, but you have the Dodgers are stacked, and, you have the same teams basically, in the past few years that have been dominating. I think are going to continue to dominate.
And maybe it will bring. I mean, I'm in total agreement with you that like the baseball season overall just it's too long to follow. For me, it's not my main sport, and so there was a point in my life where I kind of had to give up on following it because it's just too many games and too much to follow, and you can't sort of passively be a baseball fan who keeps up with things. So the 60-game shift at least means that you can kind of pay pretty good attention to it. And also that means it just makes games meaningful. Like every game will be meaningful basically for a team. Whereas when you play everyone knows you're going to lose, dozens of games. So the fact that you go and play the Pirates on a Tuesday on a doubleheader and you lose both the games, it's not going to matter come the end of the season. In this new 60-game format, it might matter. Like it's going to be it's only going to be a handful of games separating the best team and the worst team in some divisions. So
yeah. And I mean, I don't know if that is actually how kind of players get, like how they feel when they're playing games. But, like in a 162-game season, you have a lot of 4-game series where like you go play a team for 4 games straight. I feel like there's probably a few times where you get into a game, you get down 5-0, and you're like, well, we got 3 more against this team. Let's just win 2 out of the next 3 and we'll be fine, and you kind of just, not that you throw in the bag, but you're obviously not pushing it as much. And then again, the manager isn't going to make these like crucial pitching changes and things like that. They've kind of just, thrown the towel in and said like, if we
throwing in the towel
inning, we catch a big inning.
Throwing in the towel is probably better than throwing in the bag.
Throwing in the bag.
No, and it probably
does as you.
It probably does.
You can't do that. Like if you're down 4-0, you have to really be like, hey, listen, we need this game. I mean, we can't.
And for sure. And going back to managers, it will drastically change, what decisions they make. Like, do you take out a pitcher? Whereas you might pull the starter more easily, thinking let's just save him for a game, 5 days from now. Now you might think, no, we need another one, especially with the limitations on being able to bring in relief pitchers and how long they have to be there for. Now you think, okay, we need to get another inning out of our starter. So yeah, I'm sure it will change a lot. Obviously, baseball fans are really into statistics and the history of the game, and this is one season that will just throw away, like all of those kind of records and things that people can play for are gone. From a career standpoint, it probably means a lot of people will miss out on records that they could have otherwise broken because they've suddenly lost 100 games from their career. But if you set that aside, it's probably for the best.
I've got nothing to chase for in baseball, and I feel upset at this.
Yeah, if you just remove the crippling disappointment of no longer being able to break a record that would have maybe, you would have held on to at least for the rest of your life. If you throw that out of the way, it will make me, a person who barely cares about baseball, watch a few more baseball games. And that's why
I think
you're right though about the scenarios. You're right about the new formats coming out of this pandemic. Like in rugby, they just announced the 8-team tournament to replace the autumn internationals. So they're going to have the 6 nations. So England, Scotland, Ireland, Wales, France, Italy, and then Japan and Fiji are going to join into this like 8-team I guess round robin or whatever they're going to do with it. But what they're going to do is try and centralize some of the games in certain places. So they're going to have like Twickenham as a place, the Millennium Stadium as a place. And that's going to be a completely new format. And I think that's kind of, regardless of your opinions on whether that's a good thing or not, I just think it's good that very old sports try to find a way of adapting to a modern age. And I just think that's kind of a good thing.
And the interesting thing will be from the rule changes that are being put in place, how many of those will survive after things like return to normal, whenever that is. Say in football, are we going to go back to 3 substitutions instead of 5, or is 5 now? Is that just going to be the thing? Because if you go 2 or 3 seasons allowing 5 substitutions, it might change the way, for example, teams build their squads. And in baseball, the same idea. If you don't need to use relief pitchers in the same way that you used them before, you probably will have fewer relief pitchers. and maybe those relief pitchers will now get paid more because they have a more significant role in the team. And so maybe to then try and change back to the old ways, 2 or 3 years from now, teams will be saying, but hold on a second, we've completely changed the way we've approached our squad building because we had to adapt to these changes. And you can't just switch it back. And all of a sudden we've got to pick up a few more relievers. And we have this one relief pitcher who now is only going to face like one batter every 2 games. And we're paying him millions of dollars to do that.
Yeah, and actually the other one too is in horse racing, they're giving them the jockeys a 2-pound allowance now. And I've heard several interviews now where jockeys are like, this is great. Like, you don't think 2 pounds is a lot and that doesn't mean anything to you. But as a jockey, it's like, they're like, these 2 pounds are amazing. I can feel so much better, so much healthier, even with these little 2. And they're already saying that they are really, really hoping they don't go back to what it was before COVID. So I think some of these rules that are coming out of this could be longer term rules if it turns out that people like them. I guess is the main thing at the end of the day, is if the fans really hate the rules, then they're going to get switched back. But I think that we can kind of transition out of baseball. We can get into horse racing in a second, but the only thing I did want to bring up is Alex Smith was cleared to play football again. And this to me is just crazy because for anyone who's watched the ESPN documentary on what happened to him, that was like the most amazing documentary I've seen for an injury ever. And it's just a crazy story. So Sam, I don't know, do you know anything about this story?
No, I want to explain.
Yeah, so Alex Smith, he was a quarterback for the Redskins, used to be on Eddie's beloved Niners.
Hold on, the Washington football team.
Oh, sorry. Shit, I already messed it up.
All right, wipe the podcast.
Well, no, wait, but what do you say, though? But what do you say? Because he played when they were the Redskins.
Set the laptop on fire.
He played when they were called the Redskins. So wouldn't you say he played for the Washington Redskins, now the Washington football team?
Well, it's not like the artist formerly known as Prince. You would probably just go with the Washington football team, wouldn't you? You go with what they're relevant for.
Okay, well, in 2018, he broke his tibia and fibula, and he had 17 surgeries and had what they call like a battle with a life-threatening infection. And there was a point where they basically thought he was, 1, not going to keep his leg, and 2, could potentially die from this infection. That's how serious of an injury it was. And I'm going to share my screen, Sam, because I want you to see the pictures they showed in the documentary of what his leg looked like. And I want you to give us your live reaction of what it looks like. So here's the first one. That's what the infection of his leg looked like. You're muted. We've ruined it.
He's not muted. No. He's fainted. He's fainted.
I fainted. It genuinely looks like a shark bite. That's
I think that looks way worse than a shark bite.
There's just black.
That looks like someone. That looks like someone got bitten by a shark on the top of Mount Everest.
The bottom half looks like an Egyptian mummy kind of thing. It's absolutely
awful.
Gross. That's gross.
And that's not even the worst. That's not.
I'm not there yet. So that's the infection. So what they had to do is basically go in and just remove the infection. That was like the only chance he had to save the leg. And this all happened within like a day or 2. Like it went from, he did the surgery, everything went fine, and then he got infected, started to feel bad, and then like this happened, and then a day later it was like how disgusting this is. This is what they did to keep the leg. They removed everything.
I bought that in my local butcher's. Like, what's going on here?
Oh dear. I think that it looks fake.
It's a weird local butcher's.
It looks fake. It honestly doesn't look real. But
yeah, that's his real leg.
And to think that he's gone from that situation to potentially playing again in the NFL is unbelievable.
Not to mention, like, not only this part of it, but he broke his tibia and fibula and has like these crazy rods and things and screws and everything in his leg. Like that alone is crazy to think he could come back and play. But then to have all of that and have his leg basically be reduced to a couple of veins and a bone. I mean, like you have to redevelop all that muscle. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah. And also just from his standpoint, and I guess this is soon, yet to be seen, but psychologically, to think that you can get back into a game and have players coming to tackle you and come in around your knees and your legs, having gone through all of that.
Yeah.
And also being in a situation, like he's totally financially secure. There's no motivation to go back out there and to play to win. I mean, obviously he wanted to prove something to himself and he loves football, so I get why he would want to go back. But to psychologically get over that kind of trauma and think, no, I want to go back out there and I want to run the risk that this could happen to me again because it's worth it.
But do you think in his head he's going, it can't be any worse than what I went through these past 2 years?
No, I guess he probably is like someone who feels, you got struck by lightning and you're like, surely it can't happen again. But it can.
That's
and I mean, I hope, I'm not saying that I in any way would like to see him get injured. It's awful. And he also seems like a really nice guy. And in the documentary, I mean, allowing yourself to be, all of that to be publicly shown. I mean, if you haven't watched the documentary, you should definitely watch it but also just to see him kind of processing it and dealing with it and trying to come back. I mean, it's admirable.
Is he a free agent? No. Like, he hasn't been picked up by anyone. You said he was clear to play, so I'm assuming it's just like he's available.
He's still on the Washington football team. He's still signed with them.
God,
thank you.
That name is just catchy. I'm really
he has a chance if he can get back to what he was at. I mean, personally, I think he's better than Haskins is. If you can get him back to what he was before he was injured, he's much better than Haskins is right now. Not to say Haskins could be better down the road, but I mean, Haskins coming off didn't have a great year, right? I mean, and when Alex Smith was in his prime, he was pretty good. I mean, he gets ripped on for being that,
he's
super
a game
consistent game manager, but he was good at it, and they won games. But
my opinion, as a Niners fan who obviously went through the Alex Smith era and then watching him with the Chiefs, to me, my opinion of Alex Smith is, I don't think Smith is going to win you a lot of games, but he's rarely going to be the reason you lost. Like, I think that's where he stands as a player.
Like, and Mr. Consistent.
Yeah, and he takes. I mean, I don't think you'll win a Super Bowl with Alex Smith. I mean, the Niners got relatively close in that NFC Championship game against the Giants. But then you're also talking about, like, he played in an NFC Championship game and didn't complete a pass to a wide receiver until overtime. But he may not have even completed a pass to a wide receiver. But I think it was in overtime that he first managed to do that. So I think, and that's obviously that's your game plan and the conditions that they were playing in, but it's also kind of revealing about if the Chiefs had not moved on to Mahomes and if Alex Smith was still their quarterback, they would have not won the Super Bowl last year.
Yeah, I mean, I will say the documentary definitely is worth watching, and I was never a big Alex Smith fan, but after watching that, I kind of became more of a fan because he did kind of get forced out of situations because there was these, up and coming great quarterbacks, with Mahomes and then with Kaepernick, right? Kind of forced him out, all of that.
Yeah, you can definitely put Kaepernick in the same class as Mahomes.
Well, I'll never put him after having to watch him not run in the touchdown to win the Super Bowl at the Moose and costing me tons of money and tons of excitement that could have happened had he just ran the ball the 3 yards to freaking get the touchdown instead of throwing to Michael Crabtree 7 times. But yeah, I mean, I definitely became more of a fan of him. You have to respect what he's doing, and I mean, to a point where is it almost just crazy what he's trying to do?
I agree. I actually think the medicine, the surgery, every single bit of the health and the recovery is incredible. But I just think psychologically for him, as Eddie was saying, that's insane to think that you could take that hit again. But also, I would just think from a humanity perspective, if I'm a guy running at Alex Smith, I almost wouldn't want to hit him that hard because if you're the guy that causes that again, maybe they don't need a pocket anymore because they know he's just going to get lightly touched or something like that.
Maybe pre-game, like in the coin toss or stuff, he shakes their hands and he goes, "Oh, I'm so glad I had such a horrific leg injury. It was such a freak accident, and I've gone through months of rehab. I nearly died. I nearly lost my leg, but it's going to be great playing you guys."
Yeah, it's doctor told me if I take one more pretty bad hit that like I literally could die on the field. But good luck, man. I hope to see you out there.
Play hard, play hard.
And I guess
you want to be the guy that kills me?
Here will be the test. He's been cleared to play again. If you're him, are you trying to prove a point to yourself that you've totally overcome the injury, and in a sense, reaching the point where you could play again is the win, or does he legitimately want to play NFL games again? And once he gets into like practices where he'll take some contact and there are bodies like moving around him and flying around him, will he still think at that moment, yeah, I want to do this again? If he does, it's incredible. I don't think I would do it.
Can't you just go into like fishing or something? Can't you just realize that the scenario is incredible, everything about this is fantastic, but maybe I should lay off on the sports that deliberately try to obliterate my legs?
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea what the risk of re-injury. I don't know if having broken his leg in that way, if that means he's more susceptible to have another leg break. I don't know what that situation is. I mean, I know that's one of those things everyone says, like when you break your break a bone, it like comes back stronger and stuff, all that. I don't know if that's the case when you've had flesh-eating bacteria wasting away on your muscles and when you have several metal rods holding everything together. But maybe he's in a situation where the doctors have said to him, like, look, unless it took a freak accident to have this happen to you in the first place, and it would take another one of the same severity and with the same sort of vicious impact from multiple sides for this to happen to you again. And if you're in that situation, and he's obviously played football at a high level for a long time, maybe you think, well, this doesn't happen very often, so it probably won't happen to me.
I mean, speaking as a physiologist, I mean, I don't think the issue for me isn't like whether he's going to get injured again. Is he going to be able to compete at the level he was? Because, I mean, part of the issue is, like Sam just saw the picture, I mean, they had to take different muscle and different tendons from other parts of his body and basically replace it back onto his leg. So, like, that's not the normal muscle that was there. So how that muscle then, like, regenerates and grows, is it going to be exactly how the actual muscle that was there is supposed to be? You know what I mean? Like, just the sheer logistics of whether physiologically his body is going to be normal again, and we can argue this. We already argued this when we talked about this several months ago when we first saw it. Like, he was kind of a running quarterback, not obviously as much as Mahomes and stuff, but he did have a lot of plays where he would get outside the pocket. They when he was on the Niners, like, they actually had plays where, he was running and doing some option stuff. So, like, it's not like he's a purely pocket passer. So, like, he still has to a little tiny bit rely on his legs.
Well, he
more
might
than
be
like
now.
Brady. But now, if that's the case, is he going to be anywhere as good as he was? Do you know what I mean? So, like, that I think is going to play into it. And I kind of agree. Like, I don't know if he's going back into this just to get on the field in maybe preseason, not during preseason actually, but to get on the field during training and be like, I did it. I made it back. I'm at a level. I think I'm still pretty good. Like, I'm still in here zipping the balls. I'm good. I'm done. Or if he really does.
Zipping the balls.
Yeah, he's zipping the balls. Zipping them in to the receivers.
I'm back here zipping the balls.
Zipping the receivers.
And I've also been playing football.
Or if he really does want to go out and try and win a Super Bowl, I don't know what that's going to be yet. So, but yeah, I just thought we had to bring that up because I wanted Sam to see how horrific those images were, and I cannot believe they showed it on the documentary. That was
we can turn that into a weekly segment where we just show Sam horrific.
Sam, yeah. But the thing is, for me, even as like a fan, like going the other way, I wouldn't want to watch Alex Smith now, because at some point all I'm going to be doing is focused on whether that leg is in like 14 pieces on the floor after he gets up. Like,
yeah, and you have players who happens, like Jibril Cisse, right? He broke his leg badly twice.
Yeah, for me, I can't watch that again. I wouldn't be able to watch truly Alex Smith throw a pass. I'd be more concerned with
what if he was really zipping those balls? If he was zipping those balls, you would be all over it, Sam.
I mean,
You want to
yeah.
see a guy zip the balls at the best.
Yeah, but I don't want to see a guy go through what I just saw on the pictures. So when we have the toss-up here, you can read into that one. But when we have the toss-up, you can, I'm going to go with making sure he's okay. But no, just like as a summation from me, it's pretty incredible just to see what you've shown. And the fact that in any way, shape or form, you're cleared to play sport, let alone be alive and that kind of thing. So that's pretty incredible.
Yeah. So we'll save, I guess, the NBA and NHL for next podcast. But so let's switch into horse racing, and we'll let Eddie have his "I told you so" when Enable romped home into King George. And before I let Eddie talk, I just want to say, when Frankie Dettori was riding Enable and turned around and gave like a 3-second stare into Ryan Moore, the only thing that makes it less humorous is that Ryan Moore is a man of absolutely no expression and emotion, so it probably had no effect on him.
He probably
didn't even realize that he was getting stared at, but it was still like, you can't be a fan of any sport and not love when someone is so confident that they just turn around to their rivals, give them a stare down, and just like blow by them.
Oh,
that was awesome.
He stole Ryan Moore's soul in that moment. But
wait, what soul?
Implying there's one to steal.
Yeah, that's the only issue with it. But no, I mean, look, I'm not going to take credit for tipping Enable to win. You know, like a horse that ended up going off heavily odds on. That being said, it's an encouraging race that probably, it's beaten virtually nothing there. The only thing that really cemented, the only big takeaway from me for this is that, Japan is gone. If Japan continues to, Japan has talking about, athletes that haven't done well since things started up again. I mean, Japan has gone from being a horse that was, a fairly heavy favorite at Royal Ascot to a horse that now I can't imagine being in single figures in a Group 1 ever again. But I thought Enable did.
That was a terrible performance.
I thought Enable did enough. It kind of won in the way that you would expect it to, and did enough to think that if it goes, not if, like in the arc, it will have a chance of making history. I don't think it was such totally spectacular victory, but it was definitely impressive, and to have won 3 King Georges obviously already puts it in, its place in the history books, and it has a chance that it'll, do something even more impressive at the arc.
Yeah, I think she's gonna go for one more race, right? Like the Yorkshire Oaks, I think they said.
You'd expect that it will race one more time between now and the beginning of October in the arc.
So barring something bad doesn't happen there, I think this race, at least for me, solidifies the statement we've made before that this is going to be the best arc in a very long time for a very long time. I mean, you have Enable, who looks at least back to form, maybe not better like you're saying, but at least is back. You have Gaeth, who Sam and I have done the amazing bet of getting some value with. You have Magical, who also won, who will probably go. And you maybe have Stradivarius, that we'll talk about later, might go. And you have Love, who's actually the favorite, who's getting a huge weight allowance as a 3-year-old. So, I mean, like, the amount of great horses in there, I think, like 10 years from now, people are going to be like, wow, that was a stacked one. But also just, like, the storylines, I think, will be pretty good. And, like, we've talked about whether Dettori would ride Enable versus Stradivarius, and we know it'll ride Enable. But, like,
Just to say, Enable is favorite now for the arc.
I thought they're joint favorite.
I've Enable 5-2 and Love 3-1. I'm sure different bookmakers that probably means they're joint favorites in some places.
Yeah.
But Enable, and I would imagine Enable on the day will be favorite, assuming that between whichever race it heads to, whatever the plan is, probably wins again between now and the arc. I would say,
Yeah. But I mean, even you have what's Magical?
Picking up about 16.
16-1.
That's like crazy to me that you have a horse that obviously has never beaten an Able, but it's gotten pretty close and could potentially look better this year. So like if they're already close to begin with, it doesn't need that much to beat it. And that's 16 to 1. Like that's just how deep that field is. It's crazy.
Well, going on the fact that when I looked at the anti-post earlier, you've still got Japan holding rough terms of about 16 to 20. No, it's crazy, and I totally agree with what Eddie said. Like, it's insane. But then you also see people like Serpentine are still in the anti-post running, and that's a horse that did this absolutely well. Call it whatever you want, but it won the Derby pretty convincingly, and it's going off. If it does go at like 12s, it's going to be an impressively deep race as well as high quality.
I wish there wasn't a ban on Americans coming to Europe.
Oh,
right now.
We're doing an ARC special. Like,
we'll obviously in the build up do a much better preview of the ARC. At the moment, I will be hoping that Enable wins just from the standpoint that it would be nice to see a horse achieve what it could achieve by winning that day. I wanted it to win last year. So, but if I had to tip a horse right now, I would tip Success as my tip.
What horse?
Success.
Oh.
Oh, wow.
That would be
out of nowhere.
I mean, it's not the boldest tip in the world. It's fourth. It's fourth favorite. So, I mean, you get it 14, 16 to 1, around 14, 16 at the moment. But to me, that would be the move, with the exception of Enable. I'll be hoping for Enable to win. I'm sure I'll be backing it just because I want to have no reservations about watching it make history. But I'd also happily take it on because it certainly seems vulnerable, and probably more vulnerable than a horse should be in order to justify being 5 to 2 in the ARC, which is, and especially if it ends up being 2 to 1 or something. That's relatively speaking, that's a very short price for a horse in the ARC. And I'm not sure that Enable this year deserves that.
I agree.
I think it's one of those races where you make your bet, and if it's Enable that wins, you're not very angry because you're like, oh, Enable won. It's great for racing to see. But if like Highland Reel gets entered and wins, like something like,
or like Victor Lauderum or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you lose and Enable gets beat, then it becomes a really shitty ARC.
Well, yeah, and I guess that also kind of is a natural way from one horse that will almost certainly be taking Enable on, and who maybe will win, who knows, is Stradivarius.
Good race tomorrow, right?
And obviously tomorrow you've got it racing at Goodwood, and in seemingly the first time in a while where there seems to be thoughts that Stradivarius is up against a horse capable of really challenging it.
Yeah. So I mean, the thing for me is the weight allowance that Santiago is getting, right? I mean, he's getting 15 pounds. That's crazy. And if you go off official ratings, technically, because I was listening today, he's only 10 pounds rated higher than Santiago Stradivarius is. So if you're going off of official ratings, like he's getting 15, technically Santiago should be winning, but obviously you can't go by just that. Stradivarius is just an amazing horse, and like it just digs in and wins. So there's obviously just more to it than just a rating, but it's a little interesting that Stradivarius is that short of a price. And I don't know. I think this is like, if I had to make a pick, like I think I'd have to pick Stradivarius until it loses, but I think it could certainly be beaten.
I think Goodwood's horses for courses kind of place as well, personally. I mean, Stradivarius goes for me.
Stradivarius goes everywhere.
Yeah, but he's won at Goodwood as well. He's won this exact race, and it's just.
No, I know, but I mean, Stradivarius clearly is capable of running. I mean, in almost any conditions, and certainly on any track. That's not put off by any of the quirks of. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Frank. Until you kind of touched on the point that I think is the most important one with Stradivarius. And Sam and I were speaking about this actually in a conversation, sort of off-air conversation. But in Stradivarius, you have a horse that clearly understands its racing and wants to win. And so what you know is if inside the final furlong, it gets into an actual battle with Santiago, that Stradivarius has a sort of an IQ, a sort of racing IQ that will dig deep and do its best to get there. And you don't always know that about a horse. And there's every chance that Santiago gets into a situation tomorrow against Stradivarius where suddenly it kind of doesn't have that extra gear or the sort of reserve to tap into, and Stradivarius does.
It's a 3-year-old, right? Against 6-year-old? There's a big age difference there. But I was reading a preview earlier about it, and they were basically saying, like, right, it's going to be Naif Road leads them out, always leads them out. So it's going to be Naif Road round that corner, and then it's going to be a case of where the other two constantly looking at each other, seeing where they are, who kicks on straight after that corner and goes ahead. That's the race in a simple nutshell.
Maybe it's just 2 miles of Dettori staring at Ryan Moore. Who knows?
I actually think that's an important thing, though, right? Dettori has a complete love affair with this horse. So, like Eddie said, he's going to be ridden intelligently and pretty passionately. It's not like Ryan Dettori is going to do anything different on this horse.
I would expect. I wouldn't. You're implying that some jockeys turn up for.
No, I'm just saying that I appreciate a jockey that has a love affair with the horse they're riding. I don't know why.
I don't think that changes anything. I think the argument you can make with the Dettori and Stradivarius is he obviously knows the horse extremely well. And so within the race, if he has to make tactical decisions, will be in the best possible position to make the smartest one. Whereas Moore on a horse that he is not nearly as familiar with is not in that position. So if suddenly mid-race he thinks, okay, this race isn't playing out the way we thought it would. How do I change things? And for Moore, there may be more unknowns there. Whereas Dettori will think, been there, done that. I'm totally comfortable doing what I need to do here.
That's probably the perfect explanation why Stradivarius is 1-2 kind of thing, 4-7, and why.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, again, it's just that Santiago's getting so much weight, and he's obviously, the only thing is, I guess originally this was supposed to be like Kew Gardens was going to be O'Brien's number one stayer, and it looked like Kew Gardens was doing well, and then it got injured. So, now this is like their plan B, and they did say that Santiago was going to go to the Gold Cup next year. So it looks like they're just kind of pushing the staying a little early with it. But I mean, it's at least, I will say, at least this would somewhat solidify the Stradivarius isn't that good. He's just racing shitty horses that, are stayers because they can't really race at 1-4, 1-6. At least this is a legitimate horse. It's an Irish Derby winner. It's a Queen Vase winner. I mean, come on, it's won 2 Group 1s already.
Maybe,
this is a good horse.
History would show us, in a sense, with the horses that Stradivarius has raced so far, and the knock on it being often doesn't race great horses. But a lot of the times what happens is Stradivarius races a horse, beats it, then maybe races it a time or two more, beats it both times, and that horse kind of just disappears. So the risk here with Santiago is you have a horse with the makings of a very good career who suddenly now, and there the judgment is that proof that Stradivarius is beating top quality horses, or is it just that horses get thrown in at the deep end sometimes against a very consistent performer and they're just not at that level? And it's hard to judge. I wouldn't come out even if Stradivarius romps home tomorrow in the way that it did at Ascot, I wouldn't then draw the conclusions of like, well, this finally shows that Stradivarius beats top class horses, because I would need to see more out of Santiago. I mean, I would need to see, for example, Stradivarius retired this season and then Santiago goes on to win the Gold Cup next year and a number of other races. And then you could say, okay, that looks like it, so that the form there was franked. And like all too often with the horses that Stradivarius races, the form doesn't get franked.
I mean, yeah, I agree. But I mean, like, you're looking at the main competitor for the past few races for him has been Naif Road, who's never even raced really in many Group 1s, let alone win a Group 1. And then you have a horse like Santiago, who's an Irish Derby winner already. And you're right, like, time will tell. But I think, and I don't
I don't know.
I don't necessarily agree with it. I don't necessarily agree with the people
you
who
got
are
cross
saying
counter, who is cross counter racing again. Won a
I
Melbourne.
could cross counter right now in a 2-mile sprint.
Maybe, but won a Melbourne Cup. You can make the same argument, right? It's still a horse that won the Melbourne Cup, and then is demolished by Stradivarius.
Yeah. I mean, this I think will shut a lot of people up. I'm not saying
I don't think there's a lot of. I don't think there's that many. I don't think
Yeah.
the streets are packed with Stradivarius doubters.
I do have to say, I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and they were talking about Stradivarius, and I just think you'll appreciate this. The person said he walks around the enclosure like a playboy before his races. And I think you'll know exactly what she meant. I think you'll know exactly what you mean when you walk.
Yeah, I mean, for anyone, we'll give two recommendations for people to things to read or watch after this podcast. And one is that Alex Smith documentary, and the second is just make sure you watch Stradivarius and Parade Ring, and see how well endowed Stradivarius is, and often excited just before a race goes. I mean,
to
really,
say he came out swinging is an understatement in that race, right?
I said earlier that
he's got quite the swagger.
Yeah, I said earlier that it was a horse that understood it was racing, and clearly, based on what you see before a race, it's a horse that loves racing.
But like, does that make him even better? That like before the race, he is so like that out of it, that he's going into a race, that it's like, all right, just throw me in there, whatever. I'll still just demolish everyone. Like 10 minutes ago, I'm swaggering around here like I run the place.
I mean, I don't know. Would I have been more impressed by Usain Bolt if, like, pre 100-meter Olympic finals, he'd come out in his sort of spandex with a massive erection and just kind of gone behind the blocks, just with it just there, and then just like 30 seconds before the race started, it all died down and he focused in. I don't know if that would have made me think now that truly is one of the all-time great athletes.
It just would have been coincidental.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe that's where he was getting his steroid injections. I guess that's the other.
So, yeah, and actually, Sam brought up a good point saying that Stradivarius has won at Goodwood. And that brings me to my number one statement about Glorious Goodwood, or what is it, the Qatar Goodwood Festival, whatever it's actually called. I hate betting on Glorious Goodwood. I think I've probably won 2 races in the past 5 years, because it's one of those tracks where a random horse will win, and then it's always like, oh, he just handled that course really well, like the jockey knew the course really well. It never plays to form. It's one of the ones where like you'll see a horse turn over another horse 3 races in a row, and then they get to Goodwood and somehow the form is reversed, and then the next 3 races it's not, and it's just like, oh, that's Goodwood. I can't stand it. So my goal this year is to bet as little as possible, and that usually lasts about 2 races, and then I get too anxious and I start betting, and then I start losing, I get angry, and I bet more. But
what a warning for the listeners about the dangers of gambling there.
Yeah,
there you go.
I try to not bet, then I lose, then I get angry and I bet more and I lose more.
Yeah.
We won't be one of those podcasts that's brought to you by FanDuel.
Please bet responsibly.
Yeah. Gambling problem? Call this number.
But yeah, Goodwood, people quite violently at the end of races as well go to like the stand side, or they'll go to the far side as well. Like they don't really that often. You're not going to see that many days at Goodwood where people are just always on their side or far side. Even with the weather, sometimes it can mess up the middle. So some people make a choice either way. And also, they always talk about Goodwood because it's really undulated. They always talk about these massive stamina drops. So even favorites sometimes, they is it the undulation word?
Frank, so just for context.
So wait.
Undulation was a word Frank had never heard before, I guess, sort of the 7 or 8 years ago when I sort of started introducing him to horse racing. And then he fell in love with the word undulation. Which is true.
World of undulations.
You basically only hear undulation either in horse racing or occasionally in golf. But apart from that, it's a word that you very rarely hear used.
Yeah.
But I think like that to me So Goodwood, the first time we like really bet and watched on Goodwood, that had to be what, 2013, 14, somewhere on there. I got crushed, and that was the first time where I kind of realized like these track biases and things like that, because that doesn't exist in American racing. All the tracks in American racing,
flat.
You're turning the same way. It's flat. It's maybe the distance is a little different, but then when you get to English racing, it's so different because each track is so unique. You know, like Ascot is very different from Epsom, is very different from Goodwood. You know, like there's no consistency, and it's one of those things where like I had never realized that before from growing up with American horse racing, and then I remember betting on Goodwood and betting these favorites that were like dominant favorites getting turned over, and it's like, why is this happening? Everyone's like, oh, well, this is Goodwood. Yeah. There it is. And that's exactly what Sam's saying. It's like the bias.
Yeah. I'd also say about Goodwood, the other thing that I think can be a factor at times is that whilst there's some very good and big races at Goodwood, I think a lot of top horses are primed for sort of some races either just before, that you would have been primed to race at Ascot, and then you might be primed for a target slightly later in the year. And Goodwood Falls is obviously a race. The horse will be fit. I'm not implying that they're not, but maybe the races are not being approached in entirely the same way for some of the horses. And so you might end up in situations where, a horse that maybe ran very well at Royal Ascot and is now has its sights set on a race a little bit later in the year is not in quite the same condition for a race at Glorious Goodwood that it will be elsewhere. And so I think that can make it a little bit less predictable at times. But I guess that gives us a chance. I mean, if we look forward to tomorrow's racing, we've obviously spoken about Stradivarius already. To me, the other interesting race is the Vintage Stakes with Battleground racing, just because it will be interesting to see if Battleground kind of repeats the same performance from Royal Ascot, and if it really is a horse, sort of a top quality horse. Tomorrow is going to be an interesting test.
Yeah, we've talked about this like a few times already this year about how O'Brien, is this his best year? Does he have like the same high caliber horses? And I think this could be one of them. I really like this horse Royal Ascot because it's out of Found, and I love Found, and I loved that Found destroyed Eddie's Hope in the Arc a few years ago. So it holds a special place in my heart because Eddie had quoted another great Eddie quote saying, "There is no way Found will win the Arc." That's an absolute 100% quote. And then 3 days later, it went out and won the Arc.
The only thing I would hope, just because obviously there's been some people digging back through the records to try and tarnish my name and my ability to pick things going on here. I would hope that the listeners appreciate the fact that people can so easily remember the times when I'm wrong. It's just because I'm wrong so infrequently, and it becomes such an important moment in their lives that they then have to think, oh, I have to remember this quote from 2014 for the rest of my life.
This is actually, Eddie, I will say, Eddie can go on record saying that I have a terrible, terrible memory and that I probably have early onset dementia. I do remember where you told me that Found wouldn't win the Arc. I was in HR at the university waiting to like see one of the HR people, and that's what you told me, and I'll never forget that. So maybe that is a testament.
Maybe you should have been more focused on whatever had brought you into the HR department at the university.
I was going to say, can we get some more elaboration on the HR?
It was just for benefits, nothing exciting. But yeah, I think it's out of Found, which I loved Found. So I think just like I just genuinely like want the horse to win, to succeed. And my other great thing that I always say that is humorous is that it's just a really big, big muscular horse. Like I remember seeing it, it was just a monster out there. So, those 2-year-olds that are big sometimes just do go on because they're just bigger at 2 and then tamper down at 3, like Pinatubo. I remember Pinatubo as a 2-year-old was a monster. And then now it's like, it looks pretty normal to their horses. Like they kind of caught up. So maybe that's something there. Like, I just think I think this is going to be one of O'Brien's like vintage good 2-year-olds because it hasn't had one yet. So I think he's due to, well, besides, I mean, Love's 3, but like he's due to have that 2-year-old that is like, oh, this is your 2000 guineas, Antipost favorite, I think Battleground could be it. Whether it'll then be a good horse, or it'll do the Air Force One route, who knows? But I think Battleground's legit.
Okay, and you mentioned Pinatubo there, and obviously Pinatubo is not at the Sussex Stakes, but it was a mile-long race packed with just certainly four, maybe even, I guess you could argue, five very interesting horses. So that's obviously the standout race on day 2. And the question there will be whether or not Siskin can really take the step into superstardom. I guess if Siskin wins this, then the unbeaten record, sort of stepping outside of Ireland finally starts to really look like a legitimate superstar. I'm a bit concerned by some of the noises coming out of the Siskin camp. It doesn't seem overly confident, but that may just be the style and not trying to overhype the horse. But it certainly seems that there might be some doubts there.
Yeah, I mean, both Lyons and Colin Keane have both said individually that it still needs to find a little bit to compete with these horses, which is a little discouraging that they both said it. Like if one of them had said it, you just say like, oh, that's a humble person, but for both of them to say it, then they must kind of really believe that. But maybe they're just, maybe they just don't want to be super optimistic. I don't know. This to me though is like an awesome race. If it weren't for the Arc, that we think the Arc is going to be the race of the year, this could be like the race of the year. I mean, you have every good mile horse that we've talked about a lot, like Siskin, Mohathier, Kamiko, which even Wichita like isn't a bad horse by any standards. Circus Maximus. I mean, come on, like that's a horse that consistently.
No, I mean the only one missing, the only one missing is Pinatubo,
which is disappointing. But
yeah, if you threw Pinatubo into this race, you would literally say that it's every top class miler around in it.
I mean, even a horse like Vatican City, who like obviously didn't do well in the Derby, but obviously, you could just say that it can't stay that trip. And it goes back to the Irish Guineas where it almost beat Siskin. I mean, it gave Siskin a run. It didn't almost beat it, but it was second to Siskin. So, that's a good horse. And that's 14-1 for a horse that was second to Siskin. I mean,
and it's entirely possible this would be the classic O'Brien's third string winning a
no, that's for next week.
winning a group 1 race.
And how crazy that's the third string. Like that's the first time I can legitimately say that if O'Brien's third string won, that's a legitimate horse. Whereas a lot of the times when his third and fourth string win,
sometimes we're not sure if they're horses. This is the level of racing analysis we provide. We can confirm to all of our listeners that Vatican City is a horse.
So I mean, who do you guys take?
My heart really wants Siskin to win. It's kind of not that it's as established, but it's sort of in the enable argument for me a bit, where I like seeing superstar horses, and I like seeing, those kind of season-defining horses or races. So I have serious doubts about Siskin, mainly just because of the noises coming out of the camp, and some of them to me are a little bit bizarre. The level of doubts they're talking about seem a bit strange, but I mean, I thought the way it won the Irish Guineas was extremely impressive. Whether or not the way it barged out of being penned in might have seen it disqualified in other countries, even ignoring that fact, just the way it picked up was so impressive that, I think it's getting to the point because it's drifting. So it's now out to 9-4. There's a possibility that on Wednesday it's sort of 3-1 if this keeps up. Might even end up being second favorite potentially. And I think at that moment you're going to be looking at serious value.
Sam?
Can't comment. Haven't looked at it yet.
Yeah, I mean,
are you sure? Wait, hold on, Sam. Though, do you think they're all horses?
Well, I've got to look into that, haven't I? Let's start with the facts. Let's start with, are they all horses? and then I'll start looking, just to make sure it's not two guys.
Wow,
in, like,
the guy who doesn't believe in the coronavirus is also unwilling
Stop.
I'm an anti-vaxxer and an anti-horse, or what?
unwilling to confirm that they are horses.
Stop painting that story. I mean, for me, yeah, I'd like to see Siskin win. I don't know because I personally have made that argument that it's only racing in Ireland, so is it really racing the best? Like, have we seen it up against great horses, or are we just seeing it up against O'Brien second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh stringers like it did in the Irish Guineas, right? I mean, it basically raced O'Brien's yard. That's
I mean,
what it was. It was Siskin versus O'Brien's yard,
and that fundamentally has been its career so far.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I'd like to see it win. I think that'd be cool. Exactly what you're saying. I think it's cool when the sport has superstars. I don't know why everyone has abandoned Kamiko so quickly, just because it didn't stay in the in the Derby, which everyone kind of said it wouldn't stay, but yet in the Guineas, it ran a great race in the Guineas. I think set the track record, right? I mean, it's a fast horse. It can get the mile. Like, I don't understand why everyone's kind of abandoned it just because it had one bad run at a distance that was too much for it. But I think I have to go, as much as it pains me to say, I have to go with Ryan Moore and Circus Maximus, just because it's done well for me in the past. And it's one of those horses that if it's just there at the end, it's kind of got that Stradivarius thing where it knows how to win if it's there. Like, if it's behind, it's not going to catch up and win. But if you're 2 furlongs in and it's right at the lead with the other horses and kind of see them and get a feel for it, it could potentially just grind out and win it. Like, it's a grinder. And I really like that. And it's been good to me. Like, I said it before, I like to stick with horses that I win with, until something otherwise happens. So I think for me, it's either Kamiko or just my gut heart feeling of Circus Maximus.
Yeah, it's a tough one because the style in which Circus Maximus won at Ascot was very impressive. I mean, it and Terabellum were, well clear of the rest. That being said, the form doesn't look as good after Terabellum really didn't have a great race last time out. I know that Gosden was so surprised that it didn't win, but still fundamentally that makes it a little bit harder to read into that race. That being said, too, Mahathir was in that race too, and even though it had a horrible luck in running, you're still trying to say, how is it going to find sort of 5 lengths on Circus Maximus? So it is an interesting one where you have, when you do look at the sort of order in the betting, you can make a legitimate case for any of the top 5. I think, it would be impossible for someone to say that any of them don't have a chance.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be an awesome race. These are the races that make horse racing fun to watch, when it's just a bunch of winners and you kind of get to see who's top dog or top horse, since we know they're whole horses. Should we
or very big dogs?
Or should we talk about? So I guess we'll record this Thursday. So should we do Thursday's races as well, and then leave Fridays for the next one?
Yeah, we may as well
Thursday's
do
got
that.
some good ones.
Mm-hmm.
So on Thursday you have the Gordon Stakes, and that's pretty cool because you have a lot of the Derby horses that are coming back to kind of re-race each other without Serpentine, so we can get a true test of who's the best horse. But yeah, I mean, you got English King is favored, Tiger Moth, who a lot of people are really high on Tiger Moth. I mean, almost caught Santiago. So depending on how that race works out 2 days before, if Santiago looks really good, then you have to like Tiger Moth. You have Khalifa Sat and Mogul, so you get some more of that Derby rematch things in there. So it's a really good race too. I mean, I feel like the races this year are better than they normally are at Goodwood, which again is going to make me want to bet it, and then I'm going to lose to a course specialist at 25-1 and get pissed. But I mean,
that's a very interesting race. I have to be honest, I don't understand Mogul's price. I don't get how Mogul is 4-1 second favorite for that. I've seen nothing from Mogul this season to make me think.
I have it at 6-1, like 5th favorite for
really?
Betfair. Yeah, on Betfair he's like 5th favorite.
William Hill, 4-1, second favorite at the moment.
What does William Hill know? But I mean,
Well, we'll find out
I
on
think
Thursday, I guess.
I know you're going to go English King.
No, I
Because you were
actually
high
really
up
like.
on
I
the
really
Derby.
like. I mean, I do like English King, and when you think of the confident level of confidence they had in it going into the Derby, it would then be, if that confidence is in any way well founded, you would have to think it wins this race. If they genuinely, I mean, if you can throw the Derby out because it was just such an oddly run race, and in the end too, I mean, obviously it finished well back, but it still finished fifth, so it's not as if it was of the horses that were then, if you throw Serpentine sort of out of the field, English King would have been in with every chance of winning had it not been for that happening.
So real quick before you finish, I want to touch on that point. If you throw out Serpentine winning, then Khalifa Set beat it pretty well. I mean, so are you also kind of throwing that out because Khalifa Set, maybe Marquand kind of knew what was happening and kind of went to chase it a little better than the rest of them? Or because if you're doing that, then why isn't Khalifa Set the number one choice here? Because on merit, it beat English King and Mogul and all of them.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I'm not saying Khalifa Set has no chance of winning. I guess I'm just approaching the race in a sense of trying to say, let's imagine the Derby never took place, and how would I feel about these horses? And if that's the case, for me, I mean, you can't be, obviously on that grounds, you can't be totally dismissive of Mogul, but that would be the reason why English King would still stand out to me. I mean, personally, I think my preference at the moment would be for Al Asi, but
Wow.
it would
Surprising.
it will be between that and English King.
Yeah, I would say I wouldn't be surprised if English King bounces back. I really actually like Tiger Moth, and I'm interested to see if Ryan Moore chooses that over Mogul, if they finally just give up on Mogul. Or if he does give up on Mogul, and now this is the chance for Mogul to win when Ryan Moore's not on board and it's the second choice, which then would be really stereotypical of Ryan. But, I mean, it also depends, again, like I said, if Santiago runs well against Stradivarius, then I think Tiger Moth, you have to be interested, because it was close to Santiago and almost beat it. So, yeah, I think.
Yeah, and then you also have the Nassau Stakes that day, which has Nazif racing again, and you have to argue that Nazif might be the most disrespected horse in terms of the odds. It doesn't stop winning, but the odds would never ever indicate that this is a horse that wins every race that it competes in. I mean, the fact that you can consistently bet on it at 2-1 or bigger, if all you had done in your life is bet on Nazif and kept reinvesting your winnings, you would be a very happy person.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy in this race. The first three horses have a combined 2 losses out of over, I think, 14 races. So you have 3 really good horses who rarely lose. And I think, they've, like, Nazif just lost on its maiden and that was it. And then Fancy Blue lost in its opener this year. But I kind of like Fancy Blue because it beat Alpine Star in France. And I really liked Alpine Star. And I really like Alpine Star because it beat Sharing at Royal Ascot, and I really like that horse. So it's like this little domino.
I mean, but I guess by that same logic, right? Because you like Circus Maximus, and Nazif beat Terabellum.
It's true.
So if we're gonna do the kind of try and draw these form lines through the race, you have to really like Nazif, because
I do like Nazif as well. And that's not much of a shock. I'm picking 2 out of the top 3 favorites, but Nazif I think will be hard to beat. But this could be like a Fancy Blue, Donica O'Brien, youngest trainer now, winning his second Group 1 in his first year of training.
I'll also say
really high on it.
I'll also say that I haven't been the biggest Nazif believer, and that this was probably the first race where it probably has me fully in its camp. So it will be
definitely a loser.
It's a loser, yeah. Now that
Yeah.
I have been fully convinced in its credentials, is the time when it proves my previous thoughts to be 100% right.
Yeah, I could see that. And I mean, the other thing too, you touched on it. Gosden said he didn't think it could beat Terabellum. So was it winning a testament to how good it is, or that Terabellum just didn't show up that day and that it's not the better horse?
Yeah, plus Gosden's just impossible to interpret because he tends to err on the side of caution and is a little bit negative when he speaks about horses. And
Yeah.
so it's just impossible really just to know whether or not he's really giving his true feelings or if he's just sometimes trying to temper expectations. And it's difficult to judge. He's a kind of anti-O'Brien in that respect. Every horse O'Brien has ever trained is the next Frankel. And if you listen to the way they talk about them sometimes, and then every horse that Gosden trains, there are some reservations or some reasons why he has doubts, and I think that's just his style. So it's difficult to know how his comments in the race against Terabellum, how much weight you can give to them.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, for me, that should be pretty good for Goodwood. We can talk about Batash on the next podcast.
Yeah.
My love for Batash.
No, so yeah, obviously hopefully if all goes to plan, this episode will sort of drop on the first day of Goodwood. So all of our references to the Stradivarius racing tomorrow people will have to keep in mind that that's not the case. But yeah, we'll be able to, if everything works smoothly, we'll then be able to preview Friday's races on Thursday and have that episode come out on Friday morning.
Yeah. And I've got nothing for Galway. We talked about this off air. I don't really get it. I don't get why it's such a big deal. And I guess because it's a social event, that's why it's a big deal. But racing wise, to me, it's a bunch of handicaps a lot of the horses have been like secretly aimed for this and you have no idea. And then there's a lot of just random winners. Nothing ever plays the cards. So there is a horse named Duca racing either Wednesday or Thursday. So look out for that one. That'll be a clear winner for Gordon Elliott. But other than that, that'll be my only bet for Galway.
Well, that's something for everyone to look forward to.
Yeah.
No tip is better than a tip based on your last name.
For a horse that hasn't won in like 8 races either.
It's due.
Have one since the 9th is the best.
It's been geared for this race 3 years ago.
Yeah,
All right.
It's just its entire life.
Anything else, gentlemen?
No, I think that's it for me.
I'm down.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll meet again in a few days, and we can discuss the Stradivarius race and all the other races, and talk a little more about the NHL, NBA, things like that.
Yep. Yeah. By then we'll know if Santiago is the real deal. We'll know if Siskin is a superstar. We'll see if every member of the Florida Marlins has contracted the virus. Maybe by then Sam will actually believe that the virus is a real thing. Who knows?
Maybe.
I love the picture we're painting.
It's horrible, isn't it?
All right. Thanks for tuning in to the Big Chill podcast, and we'll talk to you later. See ya.